Um, it's been, I don't know what's wrong with me. It's like a roller coaster of emotions just in this little truncated and hiccuped week that I've got going on here. I feel like I was angry yesterday, yelling about things because the destruction of children's lives as we just condone this stuff. I felt like I was totally underprepared this morning. This thing is playing at me when it shouldn't be right now. I feel like I was totally underprepared as I got up this morning, so I just went in hardcore on all of this stuff. And now, guess what? I guess you guys are not going to be surprised to hear. I feel like I've got too many things because I'm one of these paranoid folks who wants to make sure everything is detailed and fully fleshed out. And I still never feel like I fully got that because how can you really figure all that out? We'll see. But as what I'm doing right now, the reason I brought this all up because I did all of this stuff and I didn't even have the very last bit of this put into place that I just finished putting into place. So hey, how you guys doing? Happy Thursday. The back end of the week is on its way down. As you saw from the title, I got a couple few updates. I'm trying to figure some different approaches to the way we go about these things. Maybe highlighting more folks that we don't always hear from as far as investigative journalism, uncovering more stories, different types of things because I don't know, man. Sometimes I see things that are going on. The first thing I look for is whether or not big news outlets are covering this stuff just to get some follow up, to get some kind of confirmation to the degree of things that are happening. And it's not always the case. And I know I've always known this. Sometimes they have no interest in covering certain stories. So you have to flesh out further other things. Just a little bit of details as to why I go way too deep into these things because I don't want to be wrong. But anyways, that's what got me a little bit on edge today, a little bit stressed out. I literally just came back in from outside because um, there's these two dogs that are in this house that annoy me at times, and man, are they needy. I mean, bro, would you have to eat all the time? Would you have to eat now, and then you have to drink some water after that? You got to go outside and poop and pee. Come on, bro. Just stop with all the stress from these dogs. Anyways, like I said, I'm just warming up here for you guys because I want to start with updates on a story that I went through yesterday that I think is what got me in the mood that I was in for that whole hour of the stream. The 2-month-old that was trapped, let's see, neglected, tortured in that U.S. concentration camp in Dilley, Texas, that's run by a private prison whose objective is to torture, traffic people, and then allow them to die. We heard on some recordings how they want to run it like Amazon because these folks are monsters, and what they don't understand is that these are human beings that they're trafficking and shipping around in boxes, like Amazon, as they said. There's updates. And as I was also pointing out, there's some folks that are following up and actually getting to the bottom of these things that we don't always hear about. One of those folks' names is Lydia Terrazas. She's been on the beat and she's got some updates for us that have been going on with 2-month-old Juan Nicolas. Let's start with Lydia Terrazas.
I'm sad to report that Juan Nicolas, the 2-month-old that was detained in Dili, has been deported along with his mother and the rest of his family. I spoke to his mother just a few minutes ago. She confirmed that they were practically abandoned at the border. The baby is still sick. They were left there with the money they had left in their commissary, and someone actually gave them a phone in the street, and that's how she was able to call me. She's in distress. She's panicking. They were sent to the same place they fled from.
As I point out, Lydia Terrazas is now following and making sure she's keeping in touch with that mother of Juan Nicolas, the 2-month-old child that was sick in that Dilley detention center. That is once in news reports, and also specifically Representative Joaquin Castro was on the case. They hurried up, and as he pointed out yesterday, they were then hurried out of the country and deported before more bad news stacked up for this Department of Homeland Security and all of these prisons that they've got children in, specifically this one down in Dilley, Texas. A little bit more from Lydia Terrazas, because she even crossed the border after she got that call from the young baby's mother, and she's following up on the care in their situation. Here's that next update.
We are on our way to find Juan Nicolas. Yes, I'm devastated, but right now it's important to get to him and his family as soon as possible because they are not doing well. I'm in constant communication with the baby's mom. We are about to cross the border into Mexico. There are so many people asking how they can help this family. At this time, there's someone working on a GoFundMe for the family, and they were able to book a hotel with that commissary money. That saved them because other than that, they had nothing. There is an attorney with us, and we are just hoping that they're okay. As soon as we get to them, the plan is to take the baby to get medical assistance, to get checked by a doctor. Thank you all for the messages.
So she crossed the border, goes down to Mexico, meets up with the mother of Juan Nicolas, and they even started a GoFundMe because, as she said, if not for even the funds that were raised from that GoFundMe, they were literally just left on the streets. No communication devices. Actually, had to in that first part had to find someone, or someone was kind enough to allow her to use their phone to even get in touch with Lydia Terrazas. So guess what? That GoFundMe, as she pointed out, she did point out and wanted to clear up how if which one was legit, because this is what I'm always concerned about with these things. So I did want to put that up there as well too. Here's that GoFundMe to help Juan Nicolas's family find safety there. As you can see, it's raised a decent amount, more than when it was originally called for. These things tend to happen when something gets the kind of traction that this one has gotten. So, in case you guys want to check it out, this is the look of it. I can't put the link in there myself, but as you can see, many folks have contributed, have looked to help. Because when you see a brand new child that's been born into the world and has no idea what it is that they're involved in, the evil that is targeting them, the hateful white supremacists that want them dead, I feel like this is one of those situations where other folks actually want to help. So you can check that out again. It's Juan Nicolas. You can confirm those things with whichever ways that you can. But if you see that image there that I didn't posted that image of the link there, there's that opportunity in case you guys are interested in that. So as I was pointing out as we were starting this whole thing, though, Lydia Terrazas, many people are calling her an independent journalist, saying this is thank God for this woman who's actually there and following up on the story rather than just talking about it and then moving on and saying, I don't know what happened. Similar to what Joaquin Castro was doing when he was following behind that whole story behind Liam Ramos and his abduction and his mistreatment in the facility, which goes along with what I mentioned yesterday. There's tons and tons of other children and families in these detention centers that continue to be abused, that continue to be neglected, that continue to keep any kind of medical care and attention from them as they're purposely getting them sick in these facilities based on the type of conditions that they love to put them in. So I wanted to give her the opportunity because she did have a couple of lives that she put forward. You can follow her as well on the Instagram channel. Again, her name is Lydia, Lidia Terrazas. This was a post that she pointed out who she actually is and clearing up some of the misconceptions about her being this independent journalist. But she's there working really hard as a part of following up on this story. Yeah, here she is.
I do want to clarify that I'm not an independent journalist. I work for Univision, for N Univision, previously known as Univision. And yes, it has been confirmed that the GoFundMe is legitimate, and that is for his family. I am a national correspondent. I've been a correspondent for 2 years, and I cover all of Texas, Gulf states. But I, been covering immigration, of course, like many of us now on this beat for over a year. And I've been covering Dili and detentions in Dili for, a year now. And I think, I really appreciate that people are paying attention now. It's taken a very long time, but people are paying attention.
So there she is, hoping for more attention being placed on these types of situations and how she's following it. So again, she pointed out she's working for Univision, well, formerly Univision, and now works for Inmas Univision. I didn't know it had changed a bit, but she's following behind all of this. I want to give more of these details because I think it's very important that we see what it is that's happening, and also that where this type of work and this type of help actually leads to. This was another piece of decent news. I mean, from the perspective of, human life and all that stuff that these folks that are destroying folks' lives like to say they claim to be about. She also posted this on that same Instagram channel, that Juan Nicolas is now in the hospital receiving that medical attention that he desperately needed, that he was put in the position of needing in the first place after he and his family were, kidnapped and taken then into those facilities. Which one is this? So yes, that's this one. So he's gotten that care to a degree to what it is that's going on. Let me give you guys one more piece from her update about how he is now doing, because that was, of course, my second question. Sure, he's gotten his medical attention. What then is going to happen to him next? Because we've kicked them out of the country, which, by the way, his mother didn't arrive here illegally. The way that they like to claim everybody that they're claiming of the worst are here. We already know that they've been lying about this constantly. So he has found his place in the hospital. She has one more update on that. Let me share that with you guys before we move on to what it is that the Department of Homeland Security has said in response to their detrimental, aggressive, bloodthirsty treatment. Here she is one more time.
And I just wanted to hop on here to give you guys a little bit of an update on Juan Nicolas. He was in a hospital today. He was actually getting checked out. He is doing a lot better. The doctor did confirm that he has RSV and he has bronchiolitis. He looks a lot better than yesterday. He's happy, and his little sister, his older sister, not little, his older sister, Mia, she's 16 months. She looks completely different than last night. And no, he's now discharged. He is with his family, and he's stable. So he had been sick for about 3 weeks. He's been detained, or he was detained for almost a month, and he had been sick for about 3 weeks. He had that cough. And what happened is that when he went to the hospital in Frio County, which is that scare that a lot of people had, he was diagnosed with bronchitis. Now, here in Mexico, he has been checked out because, he was discharged from the hospital in Texas, and he was deported, 12 hours later, maybe even less than 12 hours. And here in Mexico, what they're saying is he has bronchiolitis, severe bronchiolitis. And that is actually a very important thing, because in the hospital in Frio County, they didn't have a pediatrician. So, they had just, I'm not exactly sure what type of doctor, but they didn't have a pediatrician. And they, took forever to even see him. And, it was just a lot.
This reality is in the face of the things that people like Jesse Waters and that other woman on CNN were saying when they say we're getting top line treatment for these folks. There's not even a pediatrician in these facilities, as they've stocked these facilities full of children who are obviously getting sick, and as they've abused them and their parents in there. If it's not direct, and if you're not calling this a direct and targeted response or aggression towards these folks, I'm not sure what else it can be. They're claiming there's all this greatness happening when in fact they're doing all these horrible things. So let's look at what the Department of Homeland Security is saying about this situation now that it's making all this news, because we now know the name Juan Nicolas. We also know the name Liam Ramos, but we don't know the names of all the rest of these people that they are torturing in these facilities. So let me show you their language and why it shows they really, really don't give a damn. This is in response to Jim Acosta asking why they're doing this to babies. It says the mother chose to take her child into custody with her. The mother chose to enter and remain in the country illegally. The mother chose not to take $2,600 in free flight home. So what makes you think once they then deport her and throw her out on the street and take everything that she's got and leave her there for dead, why it is that they would ever offer her $2,600 in flights home? And as you notice, as we've seen before from whistleblowers from the DHS, from Border Patrol agents that have worked here before, the objective here is to dehumanize these folks so that once they're dehumanized, maybe you won't care as much. So you notice, never mentioned the fact that she's with a 2-month-old baby, which everyone knows. Never mentioned the fact that she's, this human being with a name. All three of these sentences that they put there on their response to Jim Acosta asking why ICE would continue to detain and torture babies like this, they said the mother, the mother, the mother. This random human being that isn't really the person that's trying to get, care for her baby as she's in this detention facility being tortured. That's how they operate. That's the whole purpose of this. But last thing from Lydia Terrazas, because in response to that, bullshit post that they put up there, she pointed out again, Juan Nicolas's mother did not enter the country illegally. She also says that she was never offered that $2,600 to self-deport. Do you know why we can believe that? Let me tell you why we can believe what Lydia Terraza said and why we shouldn't believe what Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security says. Because everything the Department of Homeland Security has been saying about this has been blatant and utter lies. They've been dispelled. They've been told over and over again how much they're lying. There's no reason to believe anything that they say from now on. There's no reason to believe anything that they said previous to this, because they were lying then too. They lied about the murder of Renee Good. They lied about the murder of Alex Preddy. They've lied about the murder of other folks in the streets. They've lied about the detention of people. They've lied about the conditions in those detention facilities. They've lied about who they're going after every day. They've lied about their occupations of American cities. They've lied about everything that they've said because they're liars. They're fascists. They're Nazis. That's who they are. I think that's a good enough reason to realize the person who's following behind and making sure these people still survive with any kind of help that she can provide based off of information for everyone else to see how this is going has a reason to be believed. What motivations does people like Lydia Terrazas and this mother, that apparently has no name, has to bring up this whole thing when they were living in the lap of luxury off of a taxpayer's dime and taking everything from us, while then, they go and deport people off and offer them $2,600 and all this money and opportunity? It's not real. It's lies. It's Nazis. It's fascism. What makes you think that they could possibly say anything that's truthful? Which leads me to the next thing. Before I even get to that, come with me to the page, please. You guys are already there. I'm going to like this stream. You can like it with me if you'd like. You don't have to, but I would appreciate it if you did. I just want to point out, we've got people who are believing the words of people like Kristi Noem, who are known liars, who work for a guy who's the biggest liar in the White House and also 34-time felon, sexual abuser, adjudicated rapist. But we're supposed to not believe the people he's continuing to victimize. So let's move on to more ways that, since they're talking about how all of our money is being taken by all of these illegals who are liking to, take hard-earned taxpayers' dollars and then put them somewhere. I'm not sure how they're living in these big mansions all the time, but I want to point out what's actually happening with our money and who's actually taking it. These types of questions and answers are not really pointed out enough. But in case you didn't know, the criminals in the White House are the ones that are continuing to take your money. Here's Florida State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith. He's talking about detention facilities.
We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars from this emergency response fund specifically on the so-called Everglades detention camp, or the so-called alligator Alcatraz. And at such an inflated cost, by the way. I see that according to the report that we just received, that a company, Duty Calls, has provided $93 million worth of porta potties on the Everglades swamp. That's a lot of porta potties with our money that should not have been spent. I met with a group of students earlier today who very humbly asked for $90 million to fund the state college system that is needed. It is needed to fund their education, the programs that will help them succeed. $573 million of our money paid by taxpayers, which has not been reimbursed by the federal government, was spent on this extreme immigration deportation regime.
$93 million for porta potties at Alligator Alcatraz, the place that they bragged about how it, has zero facilities that's actually in any kind of way that would be called humane, because the purpose is to treat these folks like animals. Donald Trump literally calls them animals. So does the rest of this entire MAGA party. That's who they are. So this is what they're spending $93 million on for porta potties in a place, allegedly, when we know that they've got folks caged up and locked into places, jammed into places that aren't normal for human conditions, because these are concentration camps. So they're hoping that people will just die soon enough and they could just say that, they killed themselves or something, as if that sounds any kind of way better. Let me give you a couple of details of exactly how much money is being spent by this state and how they're taking it from, oddly, taxpayers and getting nothing back for it. Here, Ron DeSantis is the governor down there still. The DeSantis administration dramatically escalated spending last summer on a years-old immigration emergency, with expenses ranging from private jet flights and restaurant tabs to custom badges, according to a state accounting of how his office is using an expiring emergency fund. The con men have to hurry up and get their money from you. That spending included more than $166,000 on restaurant bills and catering, $717,000 on travel, including $203,000 on private jet bill 2 days before Christmas, and at least $1.7 million on outside attorneys defending the state's detention centers in court, because they keep getting sued for the inhumane treatment of people, and then they have to spend it on their legal background. If they didn't do all these things, they wouldn't have to spend it on legal defenses that they keep losing in court. Here's more. Despite repeated assurances from the DeSantis administration that Washington will pick up the tab for all this money, Trump administration officials and court filings now indicate that reimbursement remains delayed and uncertain. If that federal money doesn't come through, Florida taxpayers could ultimately foot the bill for DeSantis' sweeping anti-illegal immigration campaign. Yes, the same Ron DeSantis that ran for president and then was dogged out by Donald Trump, called him a piece of trash, and then piled on with all the rest of his MAGA folks, ran his ass out, and he went with the Ted Cruz route of dropping to his knees, kissing Donald Trump's toes, and holding his ass cheeks in his hand. Now he's screwing over his state further at the hands of the con man who played him. I'm sorry, he's getting his money too. Here's more. This is from the Miami Herald, by the way. The agency has used the fund to commit $380 million through 83 contracts with private vendors. The largest contracts included this $92 million for porta potty outfit Duty Calls, $61 million into IRG Global Emergency Management, and $52 million to Garner Environmental Services. Who knows what these entities are doing? But we do know that we've heard some of these entities, these companies that are profiting off of this imprisonment, concentration camp situation to the tune of all of these millions of dollars. Here's more. The money comes from Florida's Emergency Preparedness and Response Fund. It's a pot of cash controlled by that same governor. It was first established by the Republican-led legislature in 2022 to give Ron DeSantis' office faster access to money during crises. Democrats have long derided it as a slush fund for the governor to use as he pleases with barely any oversight. It's like they were right about that. Here's the very last piece of information, because I want to show you guys the vast amount of changes that have come from the way that they started with this fund that's supposed to quickly go into Ron DeSantis' hands of Florida people's taxpayer dollars, that they keep saying everybody's moving out of these blue states to go to red states so they can get fucked over by the governor. Except that what they're distracted with is, talking about trans folks in bathrooms like some idiots. DeSantis' administration spent $49 million from that emergency fund on immigration enforcement in the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year. $49 million. That sounds like a lot, right? And then $44 million the next year. That figure now has exploded to $405 million so far in this fiscal year, after DeSantis aggressively implemented Trump's mass deportation agenda, opening first of its kind pop-up detention facilities run by state emergency department rather than law enforcement agencies. So according again to the Miami Herald, that's more than 70% of the $573 million that the state reported spending from that emergency fund over the past 3 years. They ballooned their spending from 49 and then 44 to $405 million to give porta potty companies 93 million, to give some environmental company that's doing nothing environmental more money, to have pop-up detention concentration camps in the state. And then at the end of the whole thing, this federal MAGA government is doing nothing to reimburse them. And Ron DeSantis is going to bob his stupid bob head ass around and act like he's doing something great for the American people. Which leads me to this. Speaking of that whole, mass deportation policy and how it's so good for the country. Have you guys heard of this podcaster? Her name is Patty Vasquez, and she has Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. I hadn't heard much about her, but I love the way she's pointing these things out. Remember all that money that Florida's spending there, but this is more, I guess, on the national level as far as that mass deportation policy, things outside of just the concentration camps where they're murdering people. This is how much they're spending of your money, which every politician that's running against these folks should point out, of your money from this fiscally responsible Republican Party that they're spending on this whole thing.
Trump paid Rwanda over $1 million per person to deport 7 people. 7. For years, we've heard immigrants were taking our taxpayer money, wasting your hard-earned dollars, a drain on the economy. A new Senate report reveals the Trump administration has spent $40 million deporting around 300 people to countries they've never even been to. That's an average of $133,000 per person. And Rwanda got paid $7.5 million to accept 7 deportees. I'm not great at math, but I can tell you that's about $1.1 million per person, give or take, for 7 people. And another country, Palau, got paid $7.5 million and accepted 0 deportees, not 1 person. They flew a Jamaican man to Eswatini, thousands of miles in the wrong direction at a cost of $181,000. And weeks later, flew him thousands of miles in the other direction back to Jamaica at our expense. Everyone who screams about immigrants costing us money better have a problem with the fact that we're recklessly wasting millions to find people around the world just so MAGA can feel like Trump is keeping his promises. You deserve to know where your tax dollars went to paying foreign governments over $100,000 per person, sometimes over $1 million, with 0 transparency and 0 accountability.
Where would the accountability come from? That's why the very first thing they did was start to take over agencies and any kind of law enforcement agencies and anything that has any kind of oversight or accountability, they eliminated them. That's what criminals do. They took the cops, as they like to say, the cops off the street so that they could start looting the American public. Sent Elon Musk in there to take care of all of people's information, to pocket those things, sent little dumb 20-year-olds in there to do the same thing. And then they got to pulling off this scheme from this criminal con man. And it's to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars just for the state of Florida through the governor, who's also bought and paid for and is benefiting from all this himself. So these deportations are supposed to be so vast and great, but as they continue to screw up and then send people all across the world with absolutely 0 accountability or thought process of how they're doing it, you got Kristi Noem and what's her boyfriend's name? That idiot I was just talking about yesterday, fighting over jets and firing pilots over blankets being missing. All these stories are happening for Corey Lewandowski. All these stories are happening on the real, and we're supposed to sit back and be happy about it. So one more piece from Patty Vasquez. I think this is maybe important to the folks who maybe don't care about all the money that's being spent on all this, these deportations, but also once the deportations and the concentration camps really got to going, what it does to, again, local communities, local businesses, specifically now she's talking Texas here, is devastating.
Wait, the GOP is freaking out, having emergency meetings about deportations? Isn't this literally what they ran on? Mass deportations now were the 2024 Republican platform. It was Trump's signature campaign issue. So what's the problem? Uh-oh. The problem is their voters are furious. Construction sites in South Texas are getting raided. ICE is following concrete trucks to job sites, arresting workers mid-pour, leaving half-finished foundations. Construction loans are down 30%. Businesses are filing for bankruptcy. One concrete supplier saw sales drop 60% in 6 months. And now Republican Representative Monica de la Cruz, who campaigned on mass deportations, is holding emergency meetings with Mike Johnson because her district is pissed. A Trump voting builder literally told lawmakers South Texas will never be red again. Another Trump voter says even legal workers are too scared to go to job sites. So now De La Cruz wants a new visa program to bring deported workers back. So you deported the workers, the economy tanked, and your solution is legal remigration? Oops. Be safe, everyone. Love you all.
Go find Patty Vasquez. I think she describes herself as a comedian and podcaster, but she checks through her things and she points out these serious hypocritical folks who are taking our money, and we're just supposed to not care because we're distracted too much by them talking about trans folks. What's the stupid ass term? Transgender for everybody that the president of the United States likes to say, while at the same time he's destroying even businesses and companies of people who supported him. How much confidence do you have that he plans on allowing a 2026 midterm election to happen? It's February, bro. We're supposed to wait until November to maybe try and finally to do something about this. By that point, the plan is to make sure nothing exists anymore. They're dismantling it every day, like every day, and taking more and more of your money, and then threatening doing things like sending more of their ICE agents that you're paying for to go and harass people at voting locations so that they can make sure none of that really happens the way that it's going to happen. Watch, the emergency declaration for an insurrection will be put forward before that even gets to that point. That's how they operate. But we're on this this whole theme of corruption, vast, mad corruption. And as I was just pointing out there with Patty Vasquez, businesses are suffering. I guess the good news is for this corrupt administration and their entire crime family of Donald Trump's. What he's got is a couple of his fucking idiot sons out talking to CNBC about the reasons why they're so damn corrupt. They're so blatant with it. They're willing to openly say things like this.
I'm curious what you're trying to accomplish here, because it's not just a crypto conference. World Liberty is a crypto company, but you have CEOs from Goldman Sachs and big hedge fund managers. What's the goal?
I think we're trying to modernize finance. We're the most canceled people in the world in 2020, 2021. And it's really great to almost have this retribution where all of a sudden we start pushing an agenda. Our agenda was to modernize finance, to allow that to never, ever, ever happen to anybody again.
I'm curious what you're...
How many of you guys feel sorry for Eric and Don Jr.? How much do you feel sorry for him when he says things like, we're the most canceled people in 2020 and 2021? All we did was commit tons of crimes. All we did was get busted for those crimes that we were committing. And you know what they want to do? They want to ice us out of more illegal activity, out of all the manipulation of banks and how we screwed people over. So we went to the crypto game and we went to that direction. We're the most canceled people ever. Could you believe it? Don Jr. makes it even more clear when they point out this crypto scheme as they're, selling influence internationally. Maybe it's the tens of millions and billions of dollars that Donald Trump keeps talking about. He says is invested in the United States of America. What it is it's invested in is his corruption.
To ask you about, the World Liberty Corporation, which has been in the news, and there was this big Wall Street Journal report about the 49% stake that was sold to an Emirati royal family member after your father was elected president, raising questions about whether they were doing that so they could get access to AI chips.
A, my father has nothing to do with. B, it has nothing to do with AI chips. And C, we met in the Middle East the first time.
Yes.
There's not a person in that room. There's not a banker. There's not a fund manager that doesn't go to the Middle East and to the, whether the sovereign wealth funds of the world. They're some of the biggest investors in every fund in America. To critique the one here and not talk about the others would be nonsense. It's literally what they do. And so they have done that. They invested in it, and they've actually had already over a 4x return on their investment. It's a great investment and has nothing to do with the other. We've been dealing with the conflict of interest stuff for years. I mean, they tried all this nonsense the first time around. Frankly, it's gotten old. They were the ones that put us into this position by creating legislation to try to put us out of business. We just fought back. We weren't willing to sit in the corner, curl up in a ball and die like they would love us to do. That's not how we function. That's not how we operate. And you can see that whether it's my father or us, that's never going to happen. We're going to do what we need to do to fight back.
That fool says, we've been dealing with this conflict of interest stuff for years. We've been dodging conflict of interest conversations since forever. We've been doing corrupt shit since we've even put our faces on the maps here. Since this guy took office the first time, we've been trying to get to this point, and the second time we got rid of all of those last few Republicans who felt the need to, like stop us from completely destroying this economy and completely selling all influence from people. Like he pointed out, he goes, these people are getting a great return on their investment. Yeah, bro, we already know that. You've sold out the country to people that you just, figure will only enrich yourselves, and then they're controlling your stupid ass. That's how they operate. And it all comes back, as you saw again, we got done wrong. Can you believe that they busted us for illegal activity? All we did was rob banks, and you guys stopped us from doing it. Eric Jr.'s on that same conversation. Watch, this is him on that same question. This is his answer.
Right. It's a crazy law of unintended consequences. If you look at what they tried to do when they threw my father off of Twitter, and they did the same to Don and myself and pretty much everybody else in our family. They took us off of Twitter. They took us off of Facebook. They took us off of Instagram. They took us off of YouTube. They took us off of Google. They skewed all the searches. They did everything they could to suppress. So guess what we did? We went out and we formed Truth Social. Then not too long after that, all the banks, they start canceling us left and right, every single one of them, every single one of the big banks. They start canceling us. Guess what we did? We went out and we got into DeFi because we realized it was future finance. And the great irony is half of the very executives that called us back in those days to cancel us are actually in this room right now. It is a law of unintended consequences. And I think, for a long time they fought it. And I think at this point they realize they can't fight it. The train has left the station. This is happening worldwide. The whole world is adopting crypto in a very, very big, fast manner. And they'd much rather be on the side of something that's clearly the future than be trying to fight it in perpetuity.
Well,
So as Eric Trump there describes an oligarchy of people who decided to get on the train that's already left the station of corruption, and now all they wanted to do was make sure that they got their money invested with this corrupt scheme of crypto, and then we receive things for it, there's nothing you can do about it anymore. They're blatantly telling you to your faces. Those are two middle fingers that look like the sons of Donald Trump flicking off the American people saying, what are you going to do about it? Yes, we took all of this money of yours and then we peddled it to foreign interests that also have now stake in this country through us. They barely even know what the hell is going on, as long as they're getting their money back, because you did us wrong by busting our dad and his illegal activity. I'm not sure why we can sit there and listen to them say that, and pitchforks are not out in front of, the White House, while they're literally telling you, fuck you, we did what we wanted to do because you busted us. Like, they said it so many times. But I want to remind you guys, let me remind you, this didn't just start in 2024, 25, at the back end of 24 when they got elected into 25. This has been who these guys have been since this guy rolled down that escalator. Do you guys remember this? When he first got into office, there was all this talk about Donald Trump's tax returns. There was all this talk about whether or not he'd be peddling his businesses within the White House. And he had this fake ass news conference.
Or businesses. The vast holdings could create unprecedented conflicts of interest. But Trump said he would not follow advice from ethics experts to divest or create a completely blind trust, and instead announced he will hand over management of the Trump Organization to his sons.
Just so you understand, these papers, because I'm not sure that was explained properly, but these papers are all just a piece of the many, many companies that are being put into trust to be run by my two sons. And I hope at the end of 8 years, I'll come back and I'll say, oh, you did a good job. Otherwise, if they do a bad job, I'll say, you're fired.
Sir, you did not answer whether any of your associates were in contact with the Russians. Sir, you did not answer whether any of your associates were in contact with the Russians.
That was when he was ignoring questions about, interference with the Russians and all his back and forth and dealings with them. Instead, he was having fake news conferences about how he's divesting his businesses with all those folders because, responsible business folks have all those messy ass folders just stacked out of all of their business dealings with random papers just shifted through there because that's how that's how he operates. That fakeness was also exposed at the time. I believe that was, beginning of 2017, right when he first got into office the first time, and Mike Pence was standing there like a dud. CNN posted this at the time. Again, this is Trump's first term, very beginning. That update came from CNN and said the Trump team did not allow the press to even see the contents of those folders. You know why? Do you know why? Because just like his big book, I believe it was a healthcare plan or something, I can't remember. There was blank pages in there. What they did was they went down to Office Depot and said, we need all the reams of paper that you got because we're going to stack it into some manila folders and have this stupid fake press conference where we act like Donald Trump is divesting all of his businesses from all the dealings because he's in extreme debt and he owes a lot of people a lot of money. And he also owes people a lot of influence because he sells out anyone that's around him. And why not sell out the entire country that was stupid enough to elect him into the White House? It's almost like there should have been like these folks in Congress in these committees called like Oversight, where they investigate and look into all the corrupt dealings that they're involved in and then do something about it. The main problem with that is those things actually exist. And one of those people that's in charge of, oversight and investigating into folks, his name is James Comer. And what James Comer does is he walks around on his knees and he kisses Donald Trump's ass. This is his response to the latest corrupt dealings that this Trump crime family, since they talked about the Bidens, the Trump crime family has been pulling off. This is going into just this now term. Look at James Comer's stupid face.
Just quickly, do you have any concern if he doesn't divest about future President Trump using public office to enrich himself and his family? If he doesn't divest, would that concern you?
I think the most important thing is transparency. And with respect to tax records, I come from a banking background. Tax records don't mean anything. If you want to know whether someone's doing something corrupt or not, get their bank records, because bank records don't lie. People cheat on their taxes all the time. The most important thing is bank records. And I think as long as President Trump is transparent, I think the American people will give him a pass on his business activity. But if it ever comes out that they've got secret deals or whatever, then that could potentially be a problem, obviously, moving down.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So what I hear you saying is he doesn't need to divest as long as he's transparent from all these different business ventures, real estate, Bible selling, NFTs, so forth.
I think transparency is the best answer for that question. So hopefully he'll be transparent with.
Just quickly, do you have any?
A lesson to all the young aspiring criminals out there. As long as you're open about your criminal activity, James Comer is okay with it. As long as you're Donald Trump and you're open with your criminal activity and you say, yo, I'm robbing you. Yes, I have corrupt dealings. Yes, I'm enriching myself through the White House to the tune of several $billions, and then demanding more money from our government based off of his made up grievances against this country. James effing Comer is perfectly okay with that stuff. That's what he said. That was in like December, right after Donald Trump got elected. But even right before Donald Trump got elected, this was in October of 2024. James Comer, again, wasn't bothered with any of this whole thing about oversight of corrupt politicians. It's weird.
I want to ask you one more thing before you go, as long as I have you, because you're chairman of the Oversight Committee.
Right.
There's a Reuters report today on the Trump family's crypto ventures. Based on the family's own financial disclosures, Reuters found the Trump organization's income from the first half of this year shot from $51 million to $864 million. About $800 million of that is from crypto. And the story details how most of the buyers are foreign investors and how all this money is going to belong to Trump when he leaves office. Is this something that you're going to look into at all?
Well, it's something that we are, like you, reading about this. We're trying to digest it. The difference between the way the Trump family's operating and the Biden family is they're admitting they're doing this. The president campaigned as a business guy. I'm not defending the policy. I think there needs to be ethics reforms. And I had a bill that Jamie Raskin killed last session because he thought that Kamala Harris was going to win the presidency, but it would have increased the disclosure. So as long as you disclose your income and disclose the sources, I think that's acceptable. If you lie about the income, you say, I never received money from China, and then we subpoena your bank records and there's $5 million from China, I think that's a problem. So, you know, I think it's a legitimate question. A lot of people are concerned, especially since the crypto industry isn't regulated. But if my position now, as long as the president's disclosing this, and they're filling out disclosures and they're answering questions. He answers questions about it. If you ask him about his crypto, he'll say, yes, they've got the best crypto country in the world. Now, do the voters like that? I think that's going to be an issue in the next presidential election. I think it's a fair question. But from an ethics standpoint and from an oversight standpoint, the president is disclosing this income. And that, I think, is the most important part, the transparency.
The only little instances back and forth there of James Comer acting like he cares anyway about this corruption is because that was in October, about a month before the election. The first one I played was in December, right after the election. He was like, I can really dust my hands of this now. I really don't care. But before that, he goes, it could be a concern when it comes to the election. And maybe people be concerned about it. I mean, but I want to make it clear to one person, one corrupt person, James Comer doesn't care. But when it comes to once he made it in, it's, oh man, do I get paid? Do I get some kind of influence? Do I get a position of power next to your feet? Because I want to remind you guys of something. Because I did many videos, stories, and breakdowns of James Comer and his relentless pursuit of corruption in our government. The problem was that Donald Trump wasn't in office. I mean, that's the reason why he was doing it in the first place. And maybe he was just too stupid to uncover it, but there was many instances of this guy trying to nail someone down, and man, could he not nail them down despite how easy he said it was going to be.
Well, what is the crime that you want to impeach Joe Biden for and keep this nonsense going?
Well,
why? What is the crime? Tell America right now.
You're about to find out.
What is the crime?
You're about to find out.
Name it.
Spoiler alert, from that first flashback, Jamie Raskin never found out pretty soon what James Comer's evidence was going to be. Even better, instead, James Comer liked to run to Fox News all the time to talk about all this evidence that he had. And its thing is, I feel like maybe he could have nailed down any of the crime syndicate that was going on in the government, but instead what he was doing was getting exposed.
Your party, the Republican investigators, say that that's proof of influence peddling by Hunter and James, but that's just your suggestion. You don't actually have any facts to that point. You've got some circumstantial evidence, and the other thing is, of all those names, the one person who didn't profit is there's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything illegally.
Well, if you look at the laptop and the emails between the president's son and his associates, they went to great lengths to hide Joe's involvement. They even gave him nicknames. They called him the Celtic and the big guy. But make no mistake, Joe Biden was involved. We're at the very beginning stages of this, but in talking with the informants that we have, some of the former Biden associates that nobody's heard from yet, we know that Joe Biden was actively involved, and we're still looking for more bank records that we believe will implicate Joe Biden.
I remember at the time, I was like, please reveal the bank records, arrest these corrupt politicians. And you would think, since he was, way on the beat, that he would have gotten to that point. Because I don't give a damn about Joe Biden's grandpa ass and his corruption if he's doing it about protecting him from it. I really don't give a damn, because there's this weird thing. Whenever people go through normal issues in this country and all the rich elites keep taking our money, I really couldn't care less about it. But he was on it constantly, so much so you almost had to start seeing, is this entire MAGA Republican Party only working, for like one guy? We heard the stupid things James Comer was saying, but it's weird that it got puppeted by so many other, like puppets.
House Oversight Chairman James Comer says he and his colleagues plan to drop a bombshell.
It's going to be Judgment Day tomorrow for the White House.
You have the confidential FBI informant who's basically saying that Joe Biden took $5 million from Burisma.
The informant was a highly valued human source for the FBI.
A trusted, highly credible informant.
A trusted, confidential informant.
They had a credible source, one of their good sources.
Their most credible paid FBI informant.
We have determined that whistleblower is extremely credible.
The details come from an FBI informant who is very trusted.
A highly reliable informant that has always checked out all the information he's ever given us has checked out.
A confidential human source that had been reliable previously to the FBI. A confidential human source gave credible information. This FD 1023 is damning. I do a podcast 3 days a week, Verdict with Ted Cruz. The podcast has gone into the details.
This is a very crucial piece of our investigation.
Crazy. It's crazy. Like, they had these informants and then, all of them were talking the exact same talking point. It's weird how they all had the same thing to say based off of what James Comer was talking about. But, maybe we can mold these two instances of informants. There's 1,000 survivors, victims of, the Jeffrey Epstein, a situation where Donald Trump is listed, 5,000 times, from what we've seen. And we've got these folks, maybe we can call them informants instead of, victims or survivors, where they've pointed out all the stuff. We can even call them whistleblowers, where they've talked about all the things that these folks were doing to them, trafficking them, assaulting them, murder, and threats of people's families, money being exchanged, rich people giving money to this guy to continue to do this, letters being written, poetry being talked about, all the disgusting things they were doing to other human beings. It's like maybe there's an outside chance maybe we could listen to those, informants instead of protecting the guy who's obviously a part of the whole thing. So very last piece of our walk down memory lane of James Comer and his commitment to law enforcement. I'm going to show you guys, in case you forgot, this is what happened to that informant that James Comer and company were talking about.
You have spoken with whistleblowers. You also spoke with an informant who gave you all of this information. Where is that informant today? Where are these whistleblowers?
Well, unfortunately, we can't track down the informant. We're hopeful that the informant is still there. The whistleblower knows the informant. The whistleblower is very credible.
Guess couldn't track him down. There's a lot of this direct and utter informants that they found. It's almost like that was like a campaign ploy to go for the entire year to manipulate stupid people's brains long enough so that the most corrupt guy can come in and start destroying the country. And now we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars just in the state of Florida, like I mentioned a minute ago, for slush funds for Ron DeSantis to then do Donald Trump's bidding, to then not pay those taxpayers back as they destroy their communities and their economies. And then, send armed Klansmen into the streets to, go attack folks based off of their color, their skin, where they assume they're from, their accents, and where they work. Seems like a good trade-off there. I hope all that money is worth it that we're spending, on these Nazis. Good job. It was weird though. At the time, there was so many people with Trump derangement syndrome who kept telling you that's what they were doing. I like going down memory lane every once in a while to remind folks of what it is that we experienced and how blatant and obvious it was what we were about to get into with these guys in power. And they're just, now it's turned into Eric and Don Jr. talking about how you forced us into our life of crime. It's your fault. Okay, maybe I can squeeze this last story in. It's a change of pace, a total change of pace, but it's really interested me. My wife watches a lot of body cam videos of like cops and body cam situations and how things shake out and the way they break things down. This was maybe a little bit more of a high profile version of that. It starts with this body cam video of a man. This is at the beginning, very beginning of 2025, right after Donald Trump was inaugurated. And yes, it says an angle of being associated with Donald Trump as he was coming into office. Did you guys hear about this? Because there was an update on it. There was something that was figured out a little bit more just as of like a week ago. Had you guys seen the story of this man who apparently and allegedly accidentally shot his daughter to death? Here's some explaining it with the police as they showed up to his Texas home.
Explain. No. So we were. She was just about to go to the airport.
Who is she to y'all?
That's our daughter.
Okay.
That's my daughter.
Okay.
And we were getting ready to go to the airport, and we were talking about guns. And she said, "You got a gun?" I said, "Yes." I got it out, and it just went off as she stood there. Like, as I pulled it out, it went off.
Okay.
It must have been, obviously.
Did you put the gun on the bed?
I put it on the bed straight away, yeah.
Where was it at?
It was in the bedside cabinet.
Okay, yeah, like a little, you just keep it in there?
In a locked box, Okay. And we took it out to look, and just as I picked it up, it went off.
Okay. Ma'am, I'll have you step over here, and we'll all come over here. Okay. Are they involved?
Can somebody go?
Yeah, we'll get it figured out. I got you. Yep. Here, I just want to, so if they have to come out, because there's like
Because
9.
they're about to go back to England, so she's not
She's
even.
not going there.
Okay. Are you?
This is her boyfriend.
Okay, boyfriend. Okay.
Baylor Scott White, please here, making me all three.
Yep, we got it. More than likely, honestly, she's probably going to go to Plano. Based on the injury. It'll be THR Plano. Okay. More than likely. I'll tell you here shortly.
Do you know if she's bleeding or?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
So, okay.
So as you can see there, a British man there living in Texas was talking to police officers about a devastating situation happened in his home. It had just happened. As you saw, he was trying to explain away, and he asked at the very end about his adult daughter who had passed away from that gunshot wound that came from his gun. Let me give you details from both the Daily Beast and the BBC as they broke down what has it happened. And I'm gonna give you the update of what is it we just learned about a week ago about this situation. But first, let me lay it out for you. An alcoholic father, wow, this is from the Daily Beast. An alcoholic father who shot his daughter after arguing about President Donald Trump told police that his gun just went off when they confronted him after that shooting. Lucy Harrison, 23 years old, was shot by her father, Chris Harrison, a man in the black shirt, who was 51, while she was visiting him at his home in Prosper, Texas, from her home in the UK. Again, as you saw from the video, it's timestamped there, January 10th of last year, right after Donald Trump was inaugurated. Said there was a bit of a discussion about Donald Trump and, his, I guess, fascism that was upcoming. Here's more. This part from the BBC. Police in the town investigated the 23-year-old's death as possible manslaughter, but no criminal case was brought against Chris Harrison after a grand jury in Collin County declined to indict him. An inquest into Lucy Harrison's death opened earlier at Cheshire Coroner's Court, where her boyfriend, Sam Littler, described the big argument about Trump, who was preparing to be inaugurated for his second term in office at the time. So that whole the back at the Cheshire Coroner's Court, when they opened that inquest into that death, it came because local authorities and also the grand jury there declined to have any kind of accountability for this guy. I mean, nothing. I mean, they were looking for at least manslaughter, right? It didn't work. Here's more. Littler, again, the woman's boyfriend who traveled to the U.S. with Lucy Harrison for that holiday, said that she would often become upset with her father when he spoke about owning that gun. The inquest also heard how Chris Harrison, who moved to the U.S. when his daughter was a child, had previously been to rehab for alcohol addiction. Chris Harrison, who did not attend that inquest from the British authorities, admitted in a statement sent to the court that he had relapsed on the day of the shooting and had drunk about 500 milliliters of white wine. I believe that's like an entire bottle. I don't know milliliters, but I think that was an entire bottle of white wine on the day that he relapsed from his alcoholism. He's just details of what is that happened, which then led to, nothing happening. A little bit more. Littler said on the morning of the 10th of January, his partner had asked her father during that Trump argument, as the British call a row, how would you feel if I was the girl in that situation and I'd been sexually assaulted? That's what his daughter asked her father. Chris Harrison had replied that he had 2 other daughters who lived with him, so it would not upset him all that much. Then Littler, her boyfriend, said Lucy became quite upset and then ran upstairs. Again, the day that they were supposed to be leaving and going back home. Here's the last bit of this information here. He told the court that later that day, about half an hour before they were due to leave and go to the airport, Lucy had been in the kitchen when her father took her by the hand and led her into his ground floor bedroom. Littler said he heard a loud bang about 15 seconds later, and then Chris Harrison screamed for his wife, Heather. Not this woman's mother, but then Heather, I guess his second wife. Littler said, I remember running into the room and Lucy was lying on the floor near the entrance of the bathroom, and Chris was just screaming. just sort of nonsense. These are the accounts from the deceased woman's boyfriend, who said he had seen and heard these types of things. And it was kind of tough on him, right? So after that whole thing went down, the inquiry went down from these British authorities, and I was looking and I found it. Jane Coates is Lucy Harrison's mother, who still lives in the UK, and she had a statement where she was talking about what is it they've experienced. That is up to now. This is now back in 2026, February of this year. Her response to that inquiry that was put in place then from those British authorities after these grand juries here, at least the one in Texas there, didn't come up with any kind of charges. Here's what she had to say.
Today's outcome has finally given Luce her voice back. After what has been an unrelenting year of deep shock, grief and fight. Fight with quiet yet focused, steely determination to allow Lucy to speak her truth in the only way that she now can. At an inquest, whilst we recognise that an unlawful killing outcome has been decided in a coroner's court and not a criminal one, we welcome the coroner's conclusion and thank her for exploring all of the evidence fairly, as fully as she could, and fearlessly for Lucy. I never imagined she would be shot and killed in the US, in a place where she should have been safe. We respectfully accept that our two cultures are different in regards to firearms, yet we feel Texas gun laws did not keep Lucy safe from harm. Lucy died as a result of a gunshot wound to her chest. The bullet passed through her heart and exited out of her right shoulder blade.
There she was thanking the inquiry, the conclusions that they came to. So let me show you that conclusion that they came to, even though obviously nothing has come of this, at least legally, with her father. So again, this is just like from a week ago. On Wednesday, senior coroner Jacqueline Devonish of the Cheshire Coroner's Court ruled that Lucy died in an unlawful killing from gross negligence manslaughter. I'm not sure if there's anything they can do with that, but that coroner said that that's the case. That's what her mother was thanking her for, because there's a different conclusion rather than, oh, well. But I'm not sure if that's, really carrying any weight here in this country, specifically in Texas. Last bit of information. Devonish said that Chris, her dad, knew full well that he had shot his own daughter, pointing a gun at chest height and pulling the trigger. So this coroner was pretty aggressive in this whole thing. But I want you guys to imagine really fast. Her daughter, 23 years old, comes over to visit her father, as sometimes she had done, and then doesn't make it back based off of her father then shooting her accidentally, as he said. And then afterwards, nothing comes of it. I'm not sure the level of, whatever kind of interactions they had, but it was based off of these arguments over Donald Trump. Again, that's according to her boyfriend. And it's not like it happened right after the argument, but it happened more after he walked her into the room, and he claimed they were watching a TV show describing guns, and he wanted to show her his. And that's when the accident then happened. So I'm gonna leave the last word to this woman's mother, and the kind of processing that probably needs to take place, or that she then has to go through after something devastating like this happens, and you discover the place where it happens literally has dusted their hands of the entire situation.
Texan laws on guns are so different to England. We heard at the inquest, it is legal to own a gun in Texas, and no license is needed to own that gun for self-defense at home. You can't own a gun for self-defense in England, and it's illegal to possess a firearm without a police license, with strict criteria applying to get a license. Gun ownership is legal and commonplace, and sadly, it results in too many deaths in the USA. Furthermore, it is mine and Sam's strongly held view that the US investigation, led by the Prosper Police Department, lacked the rigour and scrutiny you'd expect if this had happened in the UK. Lucy deserved better. The grand jury seemed to have no option but to conclude a no bail, which meant no prosecution could be brought based on the evidence that they were presented with.
So if you couldn't fully understand the back in there, what she's concluded is that due to the light, maybe not detailed and deep investigation that she would hope would be conducted, the grand jury didn't have much to go off of. Maybe that's why they didn't go for any charges. It starts with a care of whether or not something like this is a big deal. So this stretches from things of this argument over Donald Trump to his desire to then have a gun, and he moved to the United States and became a true Texan. And then decided to show off his gun to his daughter. That is after they had that argument, and then devastating things happen, which happen all the time in American homes. How many accidental deaths? How many people have talked about how our gun laws and the way that we allow anybody with, very few background checks or levels of information about how to use that firearm accidentally shoot themselves or a family member? Except this came under this weird circumstance of an argument over a political figure who doesn't give a damn about any of these folks. But you have to just live with it, because what can you do? It's the United States of America. In this form and many others, like, our Gestapo in the streets, as I just pointed out, there was a German politician yesterday warning the world about what's going on in the United States. It's it's pretty solidly one of those countries where people may not want to visit, may not want to send any family members, may not trust that they'll make it out alive. But we're sitting here in our happy bubble saying we're the best, number one. But I keep hearing about how all these violent 2-month-olds, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and 10-year-olds in detention concentration camps are destroying this country and are killing our people. And maybe there should be some accountability for it. It's weird how irony works, doesn't it? Anyways, that was sad. It was really bad. And anytime people lose a child like that, it's something you'll never get over. You just wish there was some kind of answer other than, oh well. Sorry. Oh well, I've gone over by 5 minutes. I appreciate you guys being here. We're back tomorrow for a Friday watch party, though. See if you guys can come up with something to drink here. I'm going right back to the same stuff. I'm solidly back in place. I might as well stop even mentioning that I've stopped doing it for like 2 or 3 weeks, because the NAS or something else experimental will be on the table next to me. I look forward to seeing you guys here. Hope you can make it. If not, as usual, all these stories are going to be up on the page later on. We'll see you guys later. Appreciate you. Love you. See you tomorrow. All right. See you later, man.